The greater the knowledge, the keener in the pain. Though the world's dreamers are sufficiently endowed with knowledge of a transcendent order, they are denied knowledge of the price. Their dreams will exact perhaps it as well that such is the case. Otherwise, the world might never learn of the dreams, as the dreamer of 1926 to 27 could not foresee the flagellation his dream would inflict. Neither could he anticipate the stupendous forces to be mustered for his dream's confirmation. It was almost 20 years to a day in October 1946 when the most powerful force for confirmation began to function beyond his most hardened expectations. It brought realization of his hopes of 20 years before, when he had visited another of the world's pioneering eccentrics in the person of Dr. Robert Goddard at Clark University at Worcester, Massachusetts. Dr. Goddard was then painstakingly experimenting with rocket construction in his cell-like laboratory at a university. He too was denied funds for the perfection of his particular dream, and he heard the customary mockery reserved for dreamers of all ages, though there was then realized the possibilities of physical continuities. Confirmation, through the medium of the rocket, there was little expectation of the rocket's early perfection, and the extraordinary part that was destined to blame procuring confirming data and servers' unrestrained enthusiasm. When, in October 1946, the U.S. Naval Research Bureau's The 2 rocket was sensationally projected into the perpetual stratosphere darkness beyond the sky, enveloping the desert community of White Sands, New Mexico. There, at the altitude of 65 miles, its camera developed from the terrestrial sky area being photographed an undeniable replica of that which had been described as early as 1927. That original photograph over White Sands conformed, did almost every respect with the revolutionary drawing of 1930. The only difference was that the rocket's drift developed an angle view of the disk areas presented by the drawing. Had the photograph been on the perpendicular, they would have been developed one of the drawing's luminous disk areas. That original 1930 drawing of terrestrial skylight illusions has been reproduced. As Figure 4, it merits for either observation and study, because it is the key from realizing factual universe values. The U.S. Navy's rocket camera photographs, proof that any camera lens, its sufficient stratosphere altitude, will show every photographed outer sky area of the Earth as a luminous and deceptively globular and isolated entity or body. The photograph contains an angle view of the disk. A photograph on the perpendicular would show one of the assumed isolated bodies, telescopically observed of the celestial. It proved the illusion and centuries of astronomical observation of the universe about us. For the luminous disk surface area must impose the delusion of an isolated globular body in the light of such sensational rocket camera performance within infinity's dark stratosphere corridor. My hope was helped for the photograph's influence. It was reasonably believed that the photograph would arouse the lethargic guardians of the mathematical universe and avert realization of the skylight illusions of the ages. However, in spite of such memorable achievement, there was no apparent awakening of the self-appointed arbiters of the universe. Pattern. Their evident lack of discernment accentuated the crystalline dictum. None are so blind as they will not see accordingly. Even as the remorseless truth of previous and orthodox disclosure was presented, the globular misconception caused the development of a series of misinterpretations of that photograph, and others that followed the misinterpretations represent for long attempts to keep intact the fallacious mental portrait of a mathematically isolated globe Earth. Those stratosphere photographs of terrestrial outer sky areas hold abundant proof the globular airy in isolation, nor illusory their messages too profound for understanding and acceptance. My truth is the truth, so say we all. It is sacred, and it must be preserved, even though it contradicts fact, tends to escape the reality which would dethrone the accepted truth. The terrestrial sky area photograph at 65 miles was concluded to be an area of the distant celestial. That conclusion, though lacking foundation, stemmed from the assumption that the rocket camera had tilted as the rocket reaching its flight limits in the stratosphere turns and began its descent. And the first photograph was assumed to be a segment of a celestial globe body millions of miles away. The fact remains that the camera need not have tilted, has assumed the mere turning of the rocket in its gliding or a drifting descent would have caused the camera to record at an angle. the globular terrestrial sky area which the rocket was approaching. Subsequent photographs over the same terrestrial sky area confirmed the latter conclusion. It is readily perceived it in the rockets. Turning the camera lens could not reproduce the entire terrestrial sky area, as it would have been photographed on the perpendicular hence of the second of rocket turning only, and arc of the completed disk sky area could be detected by the lens. It resulted in an incomplete disk area being shown asterisk. The camera lens's function was not changed. It was developing a disk through detection. At an angle thereafter, it was compelled to produce only angles of a disk because the rocket continued to drift. There was no chance for a perpendicular photograph of the sky area. Had there been the photographs after rocket, Ernie would have shown the complete disk area, comparable to those of Figure 4 naturally. When any one of such disk areas is detected, it must deceptively appear to be isolated. There must appear to be space between the disk sky areas. That is what provides the basis for the isolation misconception. The lens that was capable of converging luminous terrestrial sky area at a distance of 55 miles was therefore assumed to have photographed a celestial area assumed to be millions of miles away. Very interesting to avoid any possibility of confusion. Let us assert that the figure 55 miles is accurate. Though the rocket's altitude was 65 miles, it was only 55 miles from the outer sky surface being photographed. The distance from the Earth's surface to the sky is from 7 to 10 miles. The 10-mile figure was utilized here for convenience, and the difference between 7 and 10 miles has little or no meaning for the illustration. The lens detecting what was falsely claimed to be an area of the celestial produced an identical outline in subsequent undisputed photographs of the same terrestrial sky area. From a distance of 90 miles, the rocket sails it. It was 100 miles. It is to be observed that if the camera had been in the rocket's tail rather than in the nose, there would have been numerous full-disk photographs taken from the outer sky surface to the 90-mile stratosphere flight limit. They would have been produced prior to the displayed angle photograph taken at the time of rocket turn in the stratosphere after the turn. All terrestrial sky photographs have to be taken by a camera in the rocket's nose as the rocket descends in a long glide, or drift, that would show disk angles depending upon the angle of rocket drift during descent. The angle photographs would continue to be taken until the rocket again penetrated the Earth's outer sky on its return to land surface. Such was in fact the procedure and the original photographing expedition. Hence the photographs showing only an angle of the terrestrial are as they should be. Moreover, though such an angle photograph need not have been out the immediate terrestrial sky area where the flight originated, it would then have to be a photograph of another terrestrial sky area beyond the point of flight origin. That white sentence nobody has ever beheld, a telescopic photograph of any celestial area presented as only an angle view of a disk, or as a segment of one of the many millions of so-called globe bodies. The reason is that the astronomers' telescopes are firmly anchored. They are not drifting through space, as the rocket camera lens was doing when it detected luminous areas of the terrestrial sky. Hence, telescopic photography shows every area a complete disk. The ancient Galileo Galilei would not like only angles of a globe. He saw completely rounded globe bodies, and completely rounded globe bodies they must be, and they are but in the illusory. The manifest contradictions ensuing foreign publicized accounts and copies of the terrestrial sky photographs were evidently not considered sufficiently misleading. There was presented for a popular mental journey in this review of this land of assumption, that which follows a dark aqueous appearing area in the lower left-hand corner of one of the terrestrial sky area photographs was proclaimed to be the Gulf of Mexico. There was, however, no mention of a light-penetrating medium being used. There are no doubt many who have enjoyed reading the interesting novel titled Island in the Sky. That title is an order for a book in the world of reality, but the designation Gulf of Mexico in the Sky is another thing, and out of the world of reality, since it is not a book title, the former deals with the world of reality books, and titles are up that world, whereas the latter deals, and only in as much as any dealing may be had with things and conditions in a world that is not to explain further. It is shown that the photographs taken at an altitude of 100 miles from the Earth's surface or at about 90 miles from the terrestrial sky area, being detected by the camera lens, had to present one of two things. Both conditions could not have simultaneously existed at the same terrestrial sky area. Either one, the photograph with the aqueous appearing area, is a true photograph of an area of the Earth's surface accomplished through the medium of infrared, an extra-sensitive film which permitted the camera lens to penetrate the sky luminosity and reproduce the lens surface under that sky area, in which case the surface details would not be reproduced with clarity, or to the photograph was not taken with infrared light, in which case the lens did not penetrate the luminous powder sky, and the photograph does not portray water as claimed. Therefore, the area appearing as water represents nothing more than light variations and shadings of and within the photograph. Terrestrial skylight areas, it is just another light shading illusion. Like those developed in photographing celestial light that light's natural activity has created and continues to create many of the grotesque entities of the astronomical world to affirm suspected absence of infrared. There was not the customary mention of its application. If it was not utilized, the photograph's description has to be erroneous and expresses only that which was expected, rather than that which the photograph contains. It is notorious that we all see only what we want to see and believe only what we want to believe. It is truly held that primed observation, saris dubious as spice. The matter of the Gulf of Mexico in the sky seems to be a case in point, the most substantial evidence indicating that the water appearing area of the photograph is nothing more than light shading within a luminous terrestrial sky area lies in the fact that the area did look like water. The rocket camera lens could not have penetrated through skylight density without the aid of a special photographing emulsion, and if the emulsion was used, it would have breached the dark water under the luminous sky. It would have caused the dark order appearing area of the photograph to be white, and therefore like a body of water and appearance. Moreover, the Gulf of Mexico could not have possibly reflected its known physical characteristics under photography, through light, and at the recorded distance rivers, photographed in aerial photography of altitude not exceeding 5 miles, lose their physical characteristics as rivers that become mere lines or streaks on the land surface. Such a condition develops in photography, which is not through skylight. Hence, when the photographing distance is multiplied 15 times, and the lens is compelled to penetrate through skylight, with the aid have been frere, one could hardly expect a clearer portrait of the real physical conditions or objects being photographed